Good evening, I'm Paul Hunter, and this is The National.
What we're talking about is sexual relationships between older men and young girls.
Religious freedom rights fail to protect polygamy as BC men are convicted for having multiple wives. A pregnant woman stabbed in Montreal hours after a domestic violence call.
We offered to relocate her, and she refused.
Now the newborn child is dead.
The pattern is so clear now.
Plus, 11 years after his inconvenient truth, Al Gore talks about his new film, as well as Trump and Trudeau.
There is one other thing that I'd be remiss not to ask you about.
Another chapter in a decades-long legal fight is closed tonight. Today, two men belonging to a fundamentalist Mormon sect in British Columbia were found guilty of polygamy. It's one crime, but from freedom of religion to child exploitation and abuse, it wades through many issues and crosses many borders. Greg Rasmussen has our story.
Religious leaders, yes, but now Winston Blackmore and James Oler are convicted criminals. Blackmore remains defiant, slamming the trial as a government attack on his faith.
I am living my religion. It is a part of my faith. It is something that is hugely important to me and to my family and to my father and his father, and going back and hopefully going forward generations. It's not religious persecution that bothers me, it's political persecution.
The two promise an appeal. Although this case is about polygamy, not sexual assault, the specter of older men marrying young girls was a key factor, say those in favor of prosecution.
We wanted to ensure that this law wasn't overly broad in its interpretation, that it didn't step into the bedrooms of people who were not exploiting each other. What we're talking about is sexual relationships between older men and young girls. And when that is the case, it's not a mutual relationship.
The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a tumultuous history in both Canada and the U.S. Before splintering into various factions, it was headed by Warren Jeffs, who had up to 70 wives. Jeffs is now in a U.S. prison, serving life, convicted of child sexual assault involving girls as young as 12.
One of the big breaks in the case, I think, from the point of view of the prosecution, was that they have now obtained evidence from the United States where there are records from Warren Jeffs, who is, of course, one of the leaders of the fundamentalist Mormon sect, records that implicated these men in British Columbia.
Legal experts say this case has broad implications. Some Muslim nations allow polygamy, and that creates immigration issues, not just for Canada, but other nations as well.
What do we do the next time someone comes into this country from Saudi Arabia or some other country and says, I've got 5 or 6 of my wives with me? Do we let that person in?
Today's decision does help clarify the legal lines that can't be crossed in terms of religious freedom. But much remains undecided, including the sentence and what will happen to the community of Bountiful, dozens of sister wives, and more than 100 children. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Vancouver.
As we mentioned, it's taken the Crown a long time to get this conviction. Police were investigating Bountiful as far back as the early 1990s. No charges stuck because of a lack of clarity around Canada's polygamy laws. But in 2011, BC's Supreme Court found they were constitutional, that any religious infringement was outweighed by the harms caused to women and children. Blackmore and Oler were charged in 2014. A woman is in hospital with multiple stab wounds, and her newborn baby is dead after a horrific night in Montreal. Police now have the woman's 37-year-old husband in custody. And as Sudha Krishnan reports, the community is in a state of shock.
The scene in front of this Montreal apartment complex today barely hints at the horror that took place there overnight. A pregnant 33-year-old mother of 2 stabbed several times in the stomach. Michel Leblanc is one of her neighbors. The wife knocked on my door, he says. When I opened it, I saw her covered in blood. Police arrived around 2:30 and she was rushed to hospital. The baby was delivered through emergency C-section and listed in critical condition. Police spent hours hunting for the suspect, the woman's husband. Then around noon, sad news about the newborn.
Unfortunately, the child did not survive.
Around the same time, not too far from the crime scene, police arrested the husband. The couple's 2 children are reportedly staying with relatives.
Les enfants sont partis la veille.
The children left the night before, this neighbor says, and didn't see what happened. The police had already been at her apartment last night, called there just hours before the stabbing. They say the woman said she feared for her safety, so officers say they told her to leave with the children.
The kids were relocated elsewhere. She stayed, and unfortunately, well, we know the rest of the story.
Police are also pointing out the challenges of responding to calls like these, where officers do what they can to advise a woman to leave a violent situation, but she chooses to stay.
As a police officer, as a parent, this is very saddening.
This police commander says officers can only forcibly remove a woman if she is hurt or is not of sound mind.
I read the reports, I spoke to the officers. Excellent job there, but we couldn't force her to leave.
The suspect will appear in court tomorrow. Sudha Krishnan, CBC News, Montreal.
Well, as scoop after scoop on the investigations into Russia's election meddling came in, Jared Kushner's name kept coming up. Donald Trump's son-in-law, an anointed point man on a number of top White House portfolios. Today, he spoke to U.S. lawmakers in a closed session and made a statement to the public. Lindsay Duncombe has that story.
Normally seen but not heard, Jared Kushner's public statement today was concise, clear, and obviously carefully vetted by his legal team.
I did not collude with Russia, nor do I know of anyone else in the campaign who did so.
Sign my Russian flag! Today's spectacle fueled by Kushner's closeness to the president and the fact his name has come up repeatedly in reports detailing possible links between his father-in-law's campaign and the Russians. In an 11-page written statement, Kushner detailed 4 meetings with Russians during the campaign and the transition. After Trump's speech at the Mayflower Hotel in April 2016, Kushner says he exchanged only brief pleasantries with then-Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. He admits to another meeting with the ambassador just after the election, but denied he tried to set up a secret back channel to Russia, as previously reported. Kushner said he also met with this Russian banker before inauguration, but denied it had anything to do with business interests, also as previously reported. And of that now infamous meeting at Trump Tower, the one Donald Trump Jr. attended in the hopes of getting campaign dirt on Hillary Clinton from a Russian lawyer, Kushner's statement confirmed he attended, but goes to great lengths to distance himself from any knowledge of what happened or what went on. Kushner says he came late and left early, even emailing his assistant, "Can you please call me on my cell? Need excuse to get out of meeting." At least one Democrat on the committee believes Kushner.
He comes into that committee openly, and you're not going to be false statements in front of a committee, so I'll take him at his word that what he's saying is accurate.
But others are skeptical. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden called Kushner's statement clearly the work of a clever lawyer trying to protect his client. Kushner didn't outright criticize the work of the committee, but did stress his father-in-law won without Russian help.
Donald Trump had a better message and ran a smarter campaign, and that is why he won. Suggesting otherwise ridicules those who voted for him.
Here's what happens now. The congressional investigators, the FBI, journalists will all pore over the details of Kushner's statement, attempting to verify or find discrepancies. Any false statements could have legal consequences. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
For his part, Donald Trump didn't comment on Kushner's statements today. His focus was the sputtering Republican attempts to overhaul U.S. health care. Speaking in front of children and parents who had stories of being harmed by the existing law known as Obamacare, Trump used his presidential perch to rally support for some Republican replacement.
Any senator who votes against starting debate is telling America that you are fine with the Obamacare nightmare, which is what it is.
The U.S. Senate will vote to open fresh debate on an as-yet unseen health care replacement this week. Previous Republican plans have proven significantly less popular in polls than Obamacare. Authorities in Texas have laid charges in an apparent case of human smuggling with fatal consequences. Another victim died in hospital today, bringing the number of people dead now to 10. Migrants trapped in a truck trailer, screaming, banging on the walls to get out as the mercury rose to nearly 40 degrees. Kim Brunhuber has more.
Texans are used to hearing horror stories from those who risk their lives to cross the border, but this is one of the deadliest cases of human smuggling in recent history. At least 90 people trapped in a container with no air conditioning, no water, and, we're learning today, taking turns to breathe through a hole, being slowly broiled in an oven with wheels.
I just can't imagine them being stuck in there and dying when they thought they were going to come here for a better life. Like, this is what happened to them. It's really sad. Like, it really shakes me.
In addition to the dead, nearly 20 others were found with life-threatening injuries from heat and dehydration.
Paramedics and firefighters found that each one of them had heart rates over about 130 beats per minute, which, again, they were very hot to the touch.
The driver, 60-year-old James Bradley Jr. from Florida. Today, he was charged with transporting illegal aliens. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. According to his affidavit, he had no idea anyone was in the back of his 18-wheeler. He says he was just a contractor delivering the trailer to the person who bought it. He says he stopped at the Walmart and heard banging coming from the trailer. When he opened the back, he says he was run over by Spanish people and knocked to the ground. This incident is a far more deadly example of something that happens all the time. Last year, the Department of Homeland Security launched more than 2,100 human smuggling investigations.
The magnitude of human trafficking is growing every single day. We know it's one of the fastest growing crimes, not just in Texas, but across the country.
Immigration activists blame the Trump administration's harsh rhetoric for forcing people to take increasingly dangerous routes to America.
This happens more than you can realize because people are desperate to flee other countries and come to this country.
Trump's supporters see it differently, evidence of the desperate need for more border security. But it's unclear whether the truck ever crossed a national border. Some migrants told investigators they were picked up inside the U.S. and that they came across the river on a raft. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Los Angeles.
After days of sometimes violent protest, Israeli authorities have begun removing metal detectors outside the entrance to a site sacred to both Muslims and Jews. The metal detectors outside the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound were set up after Arab militants launched an attack from inside the shrine. But equal access to this site is an extremely sensitive issue. The Israeli government says other high-tech security measures will be used. After months of fighting the courts and getting nowhere, the parents of Charlie Gard made the impossible decision today to let their son die. Charlie's story has captured the hearts of so many around the world, but as Thomas Daigle reports, it's also ignited a heated debate over who gets to decide what's best for a terminally ill child.
Charlie Gard, 11 months old and unable to breathe on his own. The object of worldwide attention. Today, his parents emerged from the courthouse one last time to deliver the news they hoped they never would.
It's no longer in Charlie's best interests to pursue treatment, and we will let our son go and be with the angels.
Charlie was born with mitochondrial DNA depletion syndrome, a rare condition that's left him with brain damage. British specialists said Charlie couldn't be cured and recommended withdrawing life support. The case hit the courts, then they showed up. The so-called Charlie's Army, hell-bent on blaming British doctors for giving up.
It's their fault. They've now killed an innocent baby. They've murdered a child.
Despite repeated setbacks in court for Charlie's parents, supporters around the world have stood by the family, sending in donations worth more than $2 million for the experimental treatment in the United States.
Charlie's parents even gained the support of Donald Trump and Pope Francis, but doctors at Charlie's hospital cautioned against the unproven therapy.
One loses sight of a very, very unwell child because it becomes a kind of political circus.
Today in court, the case came to an abrupt end as Charlie's parents acknowledged their worst fears had been confirmed. It took an American neurologist, the latest doctor, to tell them even he couldn't save their son. Then, for Charlie, this last message.
We say, Mummy and Daddy, we love you so much. We always have and we always will, and we are so sorry that we couldn't save you.
A family thrust into the spotlight, now walking away from it. 2 weeks from Charlie's first birthday. Thomas Daglu, CBC News, London.
Ontario and the federal government have announced a plan to help fight suicide crises in some First Nations.
We have agreed to a number of steps, and most fundamentally, I think it's an acknowledgement by all parties that the colonial health system that was set up and currently exists as it pertains to First Nations across this country is not serving First Nations communities well.
An accord was signed with the Anishinaabe Nation, representing about 45,000 people. A key focus is a promise that solutions will be led and managed from within the communities as opposed to from the outside. And after a series of deaths involving Indigenous youth in Thunder Bay, Senator Murray Sinclair has been called on to examine how police handled their investigations of the incidents. The former chair of Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission will also be investigating concerns over systemic racism in the force and the recent charges laid against the Thunder Bay police chief for breach of trust and obstruction of justice. A few months after offering a $1,000 reward for recording hate speech by Muslim students, this Toronto area man is now facing a hate crime charge of his own. After a lengthy investigation, police have arrested and charged Kevin J. Johnston with 1 count of willful promotion of hatred. The wildfire situation in British Columbia's interior remains stable tonight, a day after residents were allowed back in their homes in 100 Mile House and surrounding areas. About 20,000 evacuees are still waiting for their call to return home. Right now, there are 154 fires burning in the province. Straight ahead, the Loonie hits heights it hasn't seen in a few years, but this could be a short flight.
Tonight on The National, East Germany throws open its borders to the West.
Future generations may very well point to this night and say, that was the night the Cold War really ended.
West Germans have climbed up in a section of the wall. They're standing about 10 deep, looking over on the other side at soldiers on the other side. They're cheering, they're taking photographs, they're popping champagne corks. It's a party scene that's going to go on the whole evening.
It seemed like all of East Berlin took the day off work to go and see how the other half lives. From morning till night, they streamed through the checkpoints into the western sector. Only 24 hours ago, heavily guarded, now wide open. All were given a rousing welcome.
For East Berliners by the thousands, this was their first heady taste of true freedom. The tears of joy mingled with looks of disbelief, as though the enormity of the moment was so overwhelming, they weren't really sure what to make of it all.
In sections big and small, the Berlin Wall is coming down. To those watching, it was a history-making act of demolition. Some German adults who remember Berlin before the wall found the experience emotionally wrenching. As a student, this East German was taught that the wall was meant to keep out evil capitalists. Today, he came to watch people punch holes in it.
I wanted to see all with my own eyes, and now I saw it, and it's fantastic.
Good evening from West Berlin. I'm Peter Mansbridge. That's the Brandenburg Gate.
Visitors from the east who poured in through the historic Potsdamer Platz received a welcome that brought many to tears. It seemed fitting that Western police and Eastern soldiers should link arms to hold back the cheering crowds. On the ground, a performing bear joined the party.
The wall openings are becoming a daily tradition here now, as East and West agree there have to be more routes to handle the tens of thousands of East Berliners who are crossing every hour. The vast majority just coming to take a look, do a little shopping, and then head back. And East German soldiers who used to look pretty stone-faced now look pretty tame with their flowers and smiles. The Germany of tomorrow is being shaped today in this Berlin autumn unlike any we've ever seen.
Well, it didn't close there today, but the Canadian dollar is flirting at a point it hasn't been to in a couple of years, 80 cents US. But before you start any shopping sprees, you might want to know what's fueling this rise. Jacqueline Hansen explains.
What's your favorite? Water slides? Yeah.
The Pekina family checks in for their flight to Florida, a trip that may not have happened if the Canadian dollar was lower.
We normally wait. We postpone the trip, yes. Sometimes, or look at other destinations.
But this time, the Pekina's spending money will stretch further. In just the past 2 months, the Canadian dollar has climbed almost 10%, in part thanks to the Bank of Canada.
The economy clearly no longer needs as much stimulus as we've been giving it.
The central bank's first interest rate hike in 7 years all of a sudden makes it more lucrative for currency traders to hold on to Canadian dollars and get a lift from newfound confidence in Canada's improving economy. But there are other major factors driving the dollar's rise that aren't all Canada-centric.
This is not all about us. A lot of this is a weaker U.S. dollar.
Weighed down as confidence wavers in both the U.S. economy and Donald Trump's tax and spending promises. Today, the International Monetary Fund actually downgraded its forecast for U.S. economic growth, but it predicts Canadian growth will be the best in the G7 this year. Still, analysts say there may be one thing missing in the equation to sustain a stronger loonie.
I'm a big believer that oil is still the single most important factor for the Canadian dollar.
The Canadian dollar and the price of oil, which typically rise and fall together, are unusually out of sync. The dollar has climbed and left oil behind, below $50 a barrel.
To get back to parity on the currency, we would probably need about $100 oil.
Back at the airport,
shopping. We're going shopping a little bit.
The Pekinas are eager to cash in on the more valuable Canadian dollar while they can, just in case the looney's flight is only a summer fling. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
After nearly exiting the euro and sending repeated shockwaves through the financial world, Greece is returning to international bond markets for the first time in years. In fact, besides a brief period in 2014, Greece has been unable to borrow money since 2010, when a financial crisis led to a series of international bailouts and changes of government. Now, growth prospects are returning. And after brutal cost cutting, its finances are turning around. In Italy, police managed to capture a pair of bank robbers with some eye-catching methods. That figure right there, covering up a bank security camera, is, yes, wearing a Donald Trump mask. Police believe these two brothers hit several banks, blowing open cash machines, all while wearing unusual, if topical, disguises. This is northern Spain in the middle of summer, so while the snow, actually it's hail. The freak storm peppered a town with hailstones as big as golf balls and tangerines. Cars caught in the open looked as if they'd been through a gun battle. Well, they're sometimes called mini strokes, but now doctors are learning their long-term effects can be anything but mini. And while most patients don't experience complications at the time, a new study from the Canadian Medical Association is warning that serious risks can follow. Vicadopia reports.
It happens to someone every 10 minutes in Canada, usually beginning as a clot forming in the brain, then a rush of symptoms, numbness, loss of speech and vision.
Drove home looking out of one eye and got home and laid down. My wife came in and said, "You're on the doctor."
This transit worker had a full-blown stroke 5 years ago, but it had happened before on a smaller scale and he didn't know it. Brain scans revealed that for years he'd been having mini-strokes, sometimes called TIAs, transient ischemic attacks, which he now realizes were an early warning sign of his stroke.
I always thought I just had headaches because that was the worst part of it. And it wasn't. I drove a bus 4 or 5 days with a stroke because I just thought it was a headache.
The CMAJ study tracked 26,000 people who survived their first stroke, or TIA, with no complications. Yet after a year, 9.5% of them had another stroke or heart attack, resulting in long-term care for some and even death for others. In 3 years, almost a quarter had the same fate. By 5 years, more than a third did. It's an eye-opener for researchers involved in the study.
Stroke presents suddenly, so it feels very episodic. You have one, and then you try to recover from it. But this actually has shifted my mindset a little bit to say we really need to think about this more like a chronic disease.
The risk of stroke can be reduced by improvements in diet and physical activity, but this Calgary physician says that's less likely to happen if doctors assume their stroke patients have recovered.
And the value of this article is to refocus attention and say, you know what, these people actually need some longer term attention because their rates of recurrent events, and much of it is preventable, of course, are very high.
As for Ron Lacombe, he lives with some minor after effects from his stroke, but nothing like the nearly 500,000 Canadians left permanently disabled, a number that could be lowered by watching for warning signs. Vic Adopia, CBC News, Toronto.
Up next, former U.S. President Al Gore, more than a decade after his wake-up call over climate change.
We still have time, in other words, to prevent the most catastrophic changes.
Why he still has hope, even after he failed to rein in Donald Trump.
Vive le Québec libre!
Plus, 4 words that rocked Canada 50 years ago. How powerful are they today? Let's check today's business numbers. The TSX dropped 54 points. We told you earlier of the dollar's day, it closed up more than 1/4%. In New York, the Dow lost 66 points. The price of oil went up 57 cents a barrel.
CBC News Magazine. Canadian scientists and their counterparts on the Soviet side of the North Pole have found out that the Arctic ice pack is slowly melting. The ocean is warming up. Its coat of ice is now only about 60% as thick as it was at the turn of the century.
Polar ice will melt, and by the end of the century, this will bring floods to low-lying coastal areas. Inland, there'll be drought, and in other places, an increase in storms. Some crops could be devastated. But looking at the brighter side of things, at least our great-grandchildren should have warmer winters.
Just a sample of the broad spectrum of opinion on the changes taking place in our atmosphere.
Cataclysmic, not a trivial matter and not one to be taken lightly.
The greenhouse effect will wreak total havoc on the natural world.
All of them are burning fossil fuels. All of them are adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. But if I put in too much carbon dioxide, in effect, what I'm doing is putting a dome over the entire world. Temperature begins to rise because it's being trapped, the greenhouse effect. And we can actually see it here on the thermometer just from these ordinary studio lights.
Compounding the problem has been the systematic depletion of the world's forests. Trees need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. As the number of trees diminish worldwide, more carbon dioxide is left to build up in the atmosphere.
The start of global warming can also mean extreme and erratic weather, and the evidence has been mounting up.
Knowing what we know now, how serious it may get, I don't want to see us looking back saying, oh, we could have done this, but now it's too late.
I think what concerns me most about global warming, I feel like we're just in a little experiment and that we're just not leaving anything for the future generations.
A piece of film was supposed to have been cut to open this year's Festival of Festivals, but the organizers couldn't find any, so an old-fashioned ribbon was used instead.
This evening, the gala premiere belongs to a Canadian film, Ticket to Heaven. A number of limousines have pulled up with well-dressed people. Unfortunately, nobody seems to know who they are.
Despite the problems, after the film, it was party time, and there was everything you'd expect at a showbiz bash. Stars, booze, good-looking women, good-looking men, people dancing to the music of Martha and the Muffins, and more booze.
It's Warren Beatty night at the Festival of Festivals, where the spotlight shines on everyone. The ushers at the theater had their hands full. It was their job to make sure the fans and the stars didn't collide. But when the big black Continental pulled up to the curb, there was no stopping the autograph hounds.
I'm very proud of myself from restraining myself from attempting to wrestle him to the ground, because it's exactly what I wanted to do.
This was opening night, a gala for the North American premiere of Joshua Then and Now.
There were Klieg lights and limousines, but there were also some charming down-home touches. The star, James Woods, arrived with his proud parents, who came in from Rhode Island for the event.
Now, the oh-so-cool set have decreed Canada's little festival that could a must. That, of course, is Robin Williams, Claudia Schiffer.
It's the only film festival in the world where you see all of the most important films. You see a whole year come in advance.
As un-Canadian as it is to gloat, movie critic Roger Ebert says go right ahead.
Yeah, it's okay, Canada. It's okay. It's a real big, real good festival.
The solutions are here now, and they're affordable, and they're spreading rapidly. I'm convinced we're going to win this.
When Al Gore became a climate change crusader, the issue was clouded by doubt and denial far more than it is today. In 2006, his Oscar-winning documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, did a lot to change minds. And now he's back with an inconvenient sequel to shed light on the advances made since then, as well as the setbacks, and where he thinks we need to go next. The CBC's Andrew Chang sat down with Al Gore in Toronto, but first let's see what has changed in the last 11 years.
The Arctic is experiencing faster melting.
Al Gore told us that the world was changing in 2006. We may be more aware today, but we did not fully heed his message. Since then, CO2 levels have crossed the threshold scientists marked as the danger zone for climate change. Global temperatures have increased. Greenland alone has lost more than 3 trillion tons of land ice, and Arctic sea ice is shrinking at a rate of about 13% per decade. Storms, floods, and droughts have become more extreme, giving us a taste of Mother Nature's unpredictability and power. But we've also learned to leverage that power for good. Renewable energies like wind and solar have grown exponentially, accounting for about 1/4 of all electricity generation around the world. 1997's Kyoto Protocol only relied on developed countries, but 2015's Paris Agreement brought together the developed and developing world. With 175 parties committing to limit the increase in global temperature and to get to net zero emissions in the second half of this century.
Mr. Vice President, very nice to have this chance to chat with you.
Pleasure is mine, thank you.
I saw the film not too long ago.
Great, thank you.
And, you know, there was one line that really stuck out to me, and that was where you said that there were times where you looked at the way things are and saw it as a personal failure. Why did you feel that way?
Well, because a long time ago I dedicated myself to trying to mobilize the solutions to the climate crisis, and when I realized that the large carbon polluters were taking the playbook of the tobacco companies and spending a lot of money to confuse people and create false doubts, I worried that that was going to slow us down a lot. But since then, we have broken through. Mother Nature's joined the debate, and all these extreme events related to climate have really awakened a lot of people. And in the last decade, there's been another big change. The solutions are here now, and they're affordable, and they're spreading rapidly, and I'm convinced we're going to win this, and I'm filled with hope about it.
Some of the fiercest opposition to the fight against climate change comes from within your own country, and from the highest level of government at that. How does that make you feel?
Well, when Donald Trump made his speech pulling out of Paris, I was concerned that other countries might use it as an excuse to also pull out.
Well, you tried to convince him, not...
I tried hard to convince him. I went to see him after the election and continued conversations with him after he was in the White House, and I thought there was a chance that he would come to his senses, but I was wrong. But I was very gratified after he made his speech on Paris when the whole rest of the world redoubled its commitment to to support the Paris Agreement, almost as if the world was saying, well, we'll show you, Donald Trump. And then in my country, the governors and mayors and business leaders stepped up to say, we're still in the Paris Agreement, And we're going to fill the gap, and we're going to meet our commitments regardless of Donald Trump.
What are you saying? That ultimately it wasn't a big deal that the U.S. pulled out?
No, we need to move faster still, and we could move faster with the right kind of leadership from the president, but we don't have it. And the next several months are going to be challenging for my country as this drama unfolds, but we're going to work around him. You know, the first date he could legally even pull out of Paris is the day after the next U.S. presidential election in 2020. And a new president, which I hope we'll have then, if not before, can rejoin the Paris Agreement with 30 days notice. So we're going to win this.
So I hear what you're saying, that you're going to try to work around President Trump. Does that mean you're not going to try to persuade him any longer? That fight's done.
I personally am not going to waste any more time on him. He's surrounded himself with a rogues gallery of deniers. He has some good people around him, but they lost the debate. But in spite of Donald Trump, the U.S. is moving forward anyway. And one reason is the price of electricity from solar and wind has dropped so fast. It's really amazing. In many parts of North America and around the world, it's now cheaper than electricity from fossil fuels, and soon it will be cheaper everywhere. And now the batteries to store it overnight are coming way down in price, and that's going to change everything.
And you've seen communities, entire communities, go renewable.
Yeah, one exciting part of the movie is Georgetown, Texas, in the heart of oil country. Trump signs everywhere there, a conservative Republican mayor who happens to be a CPA, so he did the numbers. And he switched his whole city over to 100% renewable energy. They're saving money, the air's cleaner, they're sold on it. No politics, no ideology, just makes good common sense.
Let me take you north of the border. Let's talk about Canada.
Yeah.
How do you feel about where Canada is in relation to the fight against climate change?
For me, Justin Trudeau has been such a breath of fresh air, and Canadians should know that he and his team were absolutely instrumental in helping us get the Paris Agreement. He was terrific there. And I've admired and been inspired by his speeches and his leadership. I don't agree with everything he's doing. We're in a transition period. I get that. But it's really a breath of fresh air. And all around the world, he is seen as a new, young, inspiring face of Canada.
And let's talk about the things on which you might not agree, because I see both sides, right? On the one hand, we have a prime minister who is seen as being quite a vocal advocate for the environment. On the other hand, he's signing off on oil pipelines. I mean, I'm a BC boy. The Kinder Morgan pipeline is a big deal where I am.
Yeah, and just today, more Canadian troops had to be sent to BC to help fight the fires there. We have more than 40 huge fires raging in the United States today. The consequences of the climate crisis should wake everybody up to this. And as I said earlier, it is a time of transition. And we face the same challenge in the U.S. Even some of our governors who are helping to solve the climate crisis face the political pressures on fossil fuels. That's changing, and now some of the policies that are being put in place are going to equalize the playing field for fossil fuels versus renewable energy, and I think that over time this transition is going to go in the right direction.
Another thing that's striking about the film was the absolute sense of devastation that you came across time and time again. Yeah. When I talk to you, you come across as a guy with a lot of hope. But when you're in the Philippines and you're talking to someone who's just been through the ravages of Typhoon Haiyan, do you feel the despair? Do you feel despair from within when you look at the broader fight ahead of you?
Well, I think the tragedies that are all too commonplace now should be a wake-up call. And I think the voices of those who have personally gone through these experiences are really important for the world to hear. And I think they need to result in our enhanced resolve to protect those in the future who would otherwise be subject to the same kinds of tragedies. So anybody who deals with the climate crisis has a struggle between hope and despair, candidly. But for me, it's always been easy to come down on the side of hope because of all the dramatic positive changes that are taking place. An economist once said, things take longer to happen than you think they will, and then they happen much faster than you thought they could. That pattern's holding true with solar and wind and other renewable technologies. It's also evident politically. This climate movement is in the tradition of all the great moral causes in human history. They all face opposition until they're boiled down to a choice between what's right and what's wrong. And that's the tipping point we're at right now for the climate movement.
You've never thought of giving up?
Oh, no. Couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't, won't.
But I mean, and the reason I ask that is because I think back to 2006 when An Inconvenient Truth was seen by the world.
Yeah.
Your harshest critics, they called you a sham, a fraud, a fanatic. How did you deal with that? That didn't give you pause to think, gosh, this is an uphill battle, the likes of which a lot of people don't climb.
Well, the climate polluters, for them, the truth about the climate crisis is still inconvenient. And there is a long tradition of people who dislike a message wanting to attack the messenger. And during my previous lifetime in politics, I developed a pretty thick skin. And when you're doing what you know is right, when the cause you're supporting is as important as this one is, criticism doesn't matter. And then, another big change in the last 10 years is that some of those criticisms you referred to revealed to be dead wrong. For example, the single most criticized scene in the first movie was an animated sequence showing that the 9/11 Ground Zero memorial site would be flooded by ocean water with the combination of sea level rise and storm surges. Well, when Superstorm Sandy hit, the ocean water poured into that site many years before the scientists predicted that it would. Last year was the hottest year ever measured. Second hottest was the year before. Third hottest the year before that. The pattern is so clear now that people are seeing through this intentional campaign by the climate deniers.
But let me ask you this. Is it frustrating that the battle lines consistently seem to get redrawn year after year? I mean, if you're not convincing people that climate change is real, you're convincing people of the degree to which it is real, or beyond that, you're trying to convince people of the urgency with which they need to respond to the crisis. I mean, where does it end?
Well, it ends with a victory for humanity. It ends with a realization that this is the biggest challenge we face and we've got to step up to it. That's happening now. There's a history to all this. You know, when the scientists came up with the firm linkage between cigarettes and lung cancer, the tobacco companies hired actors and dressed them up as doctors and put them in front of cameras to say falsely to people there are no health risks to smoking cigarettes. And 100 million people died. The climate the polluters, the carbon polluters, have taken the playbook from the tobacco industry. They've hired the same PR firms even. It's all been documented. And it's deeply unethical. But people are seeing through it, partly because there's a new participant in the discussion, Mother Nature, and her voice turns out to be the most persuasive of all.
I can see quite clearly you're convinced that this is a winnable fight. My question would be, is it winnable in time?
That's the right question. You're dead on. Some changes, regrettably, have already occurred. Big parts of West Antarctica are probably past the point of no return. But we still have time to affect the pace of that change, and we still have time to prevent other parts of Antarctica and Greenland from raising sea levels so high that lots of coastal cities will have to be abandoned. We still have time, in other words, to prevent the most catastrophic changes. But time is a-wasting. We're putting another 110 million tons of global warming pollution into the sky every day as if it's an open sewer. Emissions have leveled off 3 years in a row, declining in North America and in China, and soon will start declining everywhere. So it is a race against time. And that's why I'm hoping that people will go see this movie. I encourage people to use their voices, win the conversations about climate. Use your votes and your political participation. Use your choices in life. Choose the climate-friendly products. Send a signal to business that they need to be a part of the solution, as many of them have decided to do.
There is one other thing that I'd be remiss not to ask you about, and that is 2020, a run for political office, the presidency. Is that in the cards?
I'm a recovering politician. The longer I go without a relapse, the less likely one becomes.
That's not an answer to the question, though.
It's my answer to the question.
Well, you're not ruling it out?
Well, I'm avoiding a relapse.
Mr. Vice President, it's
Thank
been a
you
pleasure
very
to
much.
chat with
You bet.
When we come back, a new kind of crime is on the rise in Canada. Many of the accused are still kids.
I think a lot of the fellas make the mistake of looking for a girl that's absolutely perfect. Of course, I mean, you like to try and make her as almost perfect as you can, but I think you should learn to get along with the bad qualities and the good qualities.
What's your opinion on this business of going steady?
I think it's something that it just shouldn't be.
You mean it hasn't happened to you yet?
Well, not exactly.
It will someday. Don't look so smug.
I started dating when I was about 12 or 13. Well, so the prestige of having a boyfriend. I don't know, I think you get too tied down. It's almost like getting married.
How do you make up your mind how far you're going to go on a date? Or it depends on the girl.
Well, I've recently met a fellow who believes that without exception, men, women, whether they're separated, divorced, or three-time losers, still cling to the hope that somehow, somewhere, there's someone just for them. He's Morton Victor, who tried to speed the process of natural selection by organizing a singles festival.
Being single could be very frustrating. It could be very depressing at times.
Just came to meet some nice young girl.
Well, maybe in the sense to meet somebody.
Well, to meet some girls.
You have to go looking for men?
No, I don't, but I mean, there's something new or something like that. I don't know.
Single and lonely and looking for love. A growing number of Canadians find themselves in precisely that situation these days.
The big problem today is the eternal one of finding someone who thinks you're as kind, sweet, sexy, sophisticated, witty, and intelligent as you know yourself to be. Where, oh where, to find such an extraordinary animal?
When your opening line is in a newspaper, you can say whatever you want. It's something single people in Toronto are doing more than ever.
You have total and complete anonymity.
Do you believe that you can find the woman of your dreams?
If you have the persistence to not be disappointed, by all rights, the heart should take over when you do meet the right person anyhow.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day. My, oh my, what a wonderful day. Hey!
Ryan Gosling is on top of the world. Well, at least the entertainment world. He's a mouseketeer.
Hey, Ma, I'm home. It's really neat because he kind of laid low and he did, he said, we picked out of a lot of talented kids and everything, Ryan, and, I wanted you to know that you're a mouseketeer. And I went, no way. And my mom she hit the roof.
My biggest feeling was just that I was so happy for Ryan. I was happy that he was, that he got a yes answer.
Ryan had already caught a lot of eyes with his feet. He'd won an Ottawa talent show, Homegrown Cafe, and several dance competitions in the United States as well. But it was his clean-cut looks and his singing which won him an audition with Disney officials last month in Florida.
She that travel around this floor and put you down. So people, let me put you on.
Now, after signing a one-year contract, he'll do singing and dancing on the Mickey Mouse Club.
To me, it's luck because there was kids there that were just phenomenal, so luck.
It's a crime of our connected times, and new numbers released today by Statistics Canada show that police are laying more and more charges against people accused of sharing intimate images without permission. 815 last year, more than double the year before. Sometimes the content is actually created by kids and teens engaged in sexting. A troubling trend that Ioana Remiliotis first told us about last October. Here's an excerpt of her report.
How many kids ask for sexts? How many kids actually send them? It's hard to really know what goes on in this teenage cyber world. But studies show that Canadian students as young as 9 years old have sent sexually explicit images of themselves. And half of older high school students across the country have sent or received a sext. And what most of these kids don't know is how quickly an image sent on impulse can become a crime. Since 2009, dozens of Canadian teens, some as young as 13, have found themselves facing child pornography charges for sharing sexts without consent. Until recently, child pornography were the main charges laid, but a new cyberbullying law following the tragic suicides of Rhea Parsons and Amanda Todd, who were both assaulted and exploited online, is now in effect. The new law makes it a criminal offense to share intimate images of anyone without consent. The focus of the new law targets the core of every sexting crime, the lack of consent to share images.
Okay, you all set? Yeah. I think we're ready.
The fact that sexting can be a crime seems to be sinking in here, especially among young girls.
But how did it make you feel when you heard about the fact that these images had been shared without the consent of the young women who had sent them?
It made me feel terrible for the girls.
Yeah.
And it's just a terrible thing to happen, even if they knew the consequences, they knew it might happen, but they were never expecting it in the first place.
What would drive a young boy, to ask for those kind of images?
Hormones, maybe. Puberty.
And is it kind of normal to do that?
This day and age.
You think so?
Growing up with technology, kind of go to that. I think they think it's okay.
Yeah.
And then the girls, they just kind of follow along and are like, oh, maybe this is what we're doing now.
Just to impress them, just to fit in.
Me being someone who's not a popular person, seeing like the popular people doing that kind of thing, it makes you think, is that why they're so popular? Is that what makes people like them so much?
The adolescent impulse to please, the angst and regret that often follows, is what makes sexting crimes so nuanced. Many don't result in charges because police and prosecutors say they would be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of cases.
That's an excerpt from a story by Ioana Remiliotis. 50 years ago today, French President Charles de Gaulle made Quebec sovereignists stand up and cheer. Straight ahead, it's still a sore point for some.
I'm Laura Lynch. Tomorrow on the summer edition of The Current, Canada is losing the war on fentanyl. Longtime drug policy researcher Don McPherson says the only way to win it is decriminalization. That's on the summer edition of The Current, weekdays at 8:30 on CBC Radio 1.
And I'll help you out. Be comfortable.
I'm Teddy. I'm 21 years old. I'm genderqueer, and I use they, them pronouns.
My name's Isabella. I'm 27.
My name is Willow. I'm 20 years old, and I identify as Two-Spirit, but primarily as a woman.
My name is Phoenix. I'm 17, and my pronouns are he, him, and Zezer.
Gender itself is not just a binary spectrum. Like, there's literally a constellation of gender identities. And we're all floating somewhere in that constellation. And we really need to take into account that there's all kinds of possibilities and each individual's experience is unique.
My spiel on gender. The gender binary, which is male and female, which is what is recognized in the general non-trans population, it's an outdated principle.
The hardest part was accepting the fact that well, maybe I'm not really just a feminine boy after all. Maybe I really am a transgender woman, and that I am a woman regardless of how I present myself, and I don't have to conform to any of the societal stereotype of what makes a woman either.
I initially came out primarily as non-binary, and it was difficult to get people to recognize that, hey, there are things outside of male and female, and that, you know, it's possible to be one or the other, whether it be what you're assigned at birth or not what you're assigned at birth, or anything in between.
Common misconceptions about being trans is that there's just one specific way to do it, and that's like a very binary idea. Like gender, as most people know it, might be very binary, and it's like, well, you're either one or the other, and if you're trans, you either want to be the other.
I had that anxiety rolling in my mind too, because like then suddenly I knew I was going to have to answer questions because of assumptions about what are you attracted to men, of which I'm actually not.
Myself, I'm never want to confine myself to that binary, and so when I choose to express myself differently or change my body, it can be very confusing, and people have to know that you can't try to trap people, and you might think that you're helping people, but you know, you just let people be themselves.
Beautiful, thank you.
It was very beautiful.
Thank you, Phoenix.
Thank you.
Excellent.
It's a classic and unsung example of if it ain't broke, good old Microsoft Paint. Since 1985, its blank canvas has delighted millions around the world, and in this case, it reveals how some of us at the National should stick to news writing instead of art. That wasn't me who drew that. But now, after 32 years, Paint is marked for deletion. Microsoft is stopping further development and may remove it from future versions of Windows. Well, it was a moment that supercharged Quebec's sovereignist movement, shook Canada, and created decades of tension between the governments in Ottawa and Paris. On this day 50 years ago, French President Charles de Gaulle made a declaration in Montreal that still echoes in this country. Ryan Hicks looks at its lasting impact.
Raymond Tousignan has been giving tours of historic Montreal for 25 years. This stop at City Hall is his favorite. He even dresses the part.
Oh, it's just excited because it's part of our history.
La France entière! Yet today, he'll set foot on this balcony for the first time, the spot where a former French president captured the country's attention.
Vive Montréal! Vive le Québec!
On July 24, 1967, Charles de Gaulle was touring Quebec when he uttered 4 controversial words that inspired the province's growing separatist movement.
Vive le Québec libre!
Raymond Tousignan was 22 and caught the sovereigntist fever.
We were many thousand at all. And some cried, Vive de Gaulle! Vive de Gaulle! Le Québec tout en français!
It was surprising and very inspiring also.
De Gaulle's words gave the sovereignty movement credibility, legitimacy, and put it on the map.
Very important, I think, in politics to have people around the world knowing that a debate was starting in Quebec.
That balcony moment remains controversial 50 years later. So much so that Montreal's mayor refused a sovereigntist group's request to use it for their commemoration event today.
For those who want to claim sovereignty is dead, statistically it is not.
Today's support for sovereignty hovers in the mid-30s, and the movement is having difficulty getting traction with young Quebecers.
It's been about looking like they're somewhat intolerant to difference and to immigration, and that's not where sovereignty needs to be.
Which is why some hope this anniversary will remind people about the roots of the movement. Ryan Hicks, CBC News, Montreal.
And that's the National for this Monday night. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Paul Hunter. Good night.